We're here with Espen Hauge, President of the World Electric Vehicle Association, the European Association for Electromobility, as well as the Norwegian Electric Vehicle Association. You had all these three associations all involved in electromobility, Espen, so I think your view on the matter of electric vehicles and their development can be fascinating to all of us. The first question I'd like to ask you, it's quite a broad one, but with your experience and the knowledge and all the research that you have at hand, what is your own vision for the future of mobility?
Yeah, first I think for these associations, they're not exactly the same in nature, but the Norwegian EV Association gathers now 100,000 EV drivers, so it's very much focused on the practical experience and of making that experience a good one for the EV users. The European Association for Electromobility, AVERE, is an association gathering also industry within cars and charging, etc. And it's also a lot of academic involvement there. And the World Electric Vehicle Association is even more focused on the academic part, where we have our own journal, the World Electric Vehicle Journal. So we try to gather all this information together and give the best advice on how to move forward with electrification. Mm-hmm. So my vision or my impression is that we're moving to a world where everything will be electric. And there's two main reasons for that. One is the environment, and the other is the technology and the competition and the price. So first, when it comes to the price of electric vehicles, of electric cars, it's going down compared to fossil cars, and within a few years now we'll have price parity, which means that and this is the main reason and the main driver for this is the reduction of the price of battery and the increase in capacity and power of batteries. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, of course, the environmental side, where the electric motor and the electric drivetrain saves so much energy and also enables the use of renewable energy. So it's really a necessary climate solution if we're aiming for the Paris Agreement.
Mm-hmm. Just to clarify, Espen, when you refer to the future mobility being electric, do you mean battery powered, or do you mean a combination with also hydrogen fuel vehicles?
Well, in my view, it's for electric cars, for transport of people, we're mainly talking batteries. There's certainly a role for hydrogen in the future energy mix, but it's hard to see where hydrogen would be competitive in the future for road transport. Hydrogen can be used in industry. Steel production is one example where you need to move away from coal. Shipping is another very interesting domain for hydrogen. Mm. And then we have some uncertainty as to what happens with long-haul transport, but the development goes in the direction of batteries, because development within batteries is moving so fast. Mm.
So I guess in this vision that you have, most of the charging will be at home for those people that can charge at home. We know that in big cities like London, Madrid, or Rome, most of the population will be hard for them to have their own charger. But obviously, most of our readership are people involved in the fuel retailing industry, and service station is their business and is the way of attracting customers to their sites is by providing energy. It's normally been liquid fuels. So in this kind of vision that you have, what is the role of service stations, or you could also call them mobility stations?
I think we will be traveling with cars much like we've always done. And that means you will have to stop. Not only the need of the car, but the passengers also have some needs. And I think what we've seen, the typical charging station, fast charging station from up till now, I would say, would be connected to a burger restaurant, whereas we are now starting to see, at least in Norway, that charging stations is a part of the energy station, and it's located where the gas stations currently are. So it's definitely a shift in that direction, where the gas stations will be very well served with having charging facilities. And even I've seen now, we're starting to see new gas stations being built in Norway, where you have the charging station in front and the gas station in the back, whereas we're used to seeing the opposite picture. So this means that I think getting started on this development is quite key. And we see some of the international players that are running gas stations in Norway. For example, Circle K is here, and they have some of these interesting new designs for the energy stations that I guess we'll call them in the future.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask about that, because obviously you're from Norway, and Circle K is probably one of the classic oil companies that are making this transition in the fastest and most visible way, and they also have the very interesting example experience of being in Norway. So from your side, how are you seeing their transition into this new role?
I think the early movers seem to be quite happy, because when you're in the first phase of electrification, you will have relatively few EV drivers, and then we know that this number just will go one way. It will continually increase. So being established with one of the first charging stations, I think, has been very good for a few of the early movers that we've seen here. Yeah.
Another interesting example from classic oil companies, which now should be called, I guess, energy companies. We've seen that Shell recently announced a project to install 50,000 street chargers in the UK, which it seems like it's a big move in terms of like showing its will to participate in this new energy mix. Do you see major oil companies like Shell, like BP, becoming leading charging providers?
Yeah, why not? It could be a good business plan, because what we know with charging is, as you mentioned, a lot of it happens at home or while you're parked anyway. And we know that the grid has limitations. You cannot fast charge all cars at the same time. So we're very much advocating for smart charging, and definitely avoiding stupid charging, where you do everything as fast as possible in certain time periods, everyone at the same time. So yeah, I think that's one strategy. Of course, there are other options, but I think learning about how this market works and how the technology and how the grids work is quite interesting if you move in this direction. Another observation, I think, is it's going to seem quite scary for an oil company or a petrol station to move into the electric world. But about what will the market look like? But what we see now, as example, in Norway, we have had great sales of electric vehicles, and it's now getting we're getting nearer to a stop in sales of fossil cars. 2025 is the target, and we're on track for that currently. And that means that the customer base will keep increasing very fast, and we see that the development of new charging stations really has to go fast to keep up with the sales of the cars.
That's very interesting, because the debate is always infrastructure versus vehicle sales, and in most countries, I believe, is on the other side, where infrastructure is the one that is going first before the vehicles. Maybe you can tell us, Espen, about some of the. We see a lot of innovative ideas around charging. If it could be charging with magnetic fields on the streets, if it could be on highways while people are driving. Maybe you could tell us a few examples of some interesting things that we could see in the future when it comes to electric vehicle charging.
Yeah, I've seen some of the projects that are out there with in-street charging. I think the way I see it now is the fast charging model with the battery sizes that we already have is really sufficient. And as mentioned, you need to rest some time when you're on a long trip. It could be interesting to look into these other solutions for more heavy-duty transport. And also for we have some testing starting in Oslo with a taxi service that has they don't need to go out of the car and plug in, they just drive onto the charging pad and get electricity there. So these are there's a lot happening, and it's very dangerous, I think, to predict which one of all of these solutions will be the winner in the end. Another debate has been about switching batteries. So you have energy stations where you take out the battery of the car and put in a new one that is already charged. So these are also solutions that we start to see again. There is some routes in China where they have this concept and use it, and I know there's plans to build this out in Europe also. So that's another options for the people that has these needs to go very fast with short stops.
Yeah, I did see an example of that actually in an Aral station in Berlin, where they were trying out battery swapping, I believe for scooters in this case. So I wanted to talk about some of the challenges as well facing mass electrification, and which ones do you see as the major challenges that you have to overcome? There are concerns. I know the case of the UK, for example, around fuel duty, which brings in billions of pounds to the government, and the loss of that income. Also about healthy grid connection, and about having clean energy to power those vehicles. So maybe you could discuss some of this, the big challenges, and how, in your role with the different associations, you try to tackle them.
Yeah. The main thing is, of course, to keep the pace and have a good pace of increase in EV sales, and along with that we need a good pace of developing the charging infrastructure, both at home, at the office, and in in the highways, the fast and ultra fast charging. So keeping up the pace, and then another one that needs to keep up the pace as well is the transition to renewable energy on the grid. And the good news is that this is a good marriage between the flexibility offered by parked car batteries and the flexibility needed for renewables like wind and solar. So this can actually go hand in hand. There are other challenges as well. I know there's in Norway we talk a lot about you not only do you have to change the technology, you have to change the minds of people as well. But this change is sometimes perceived as quite big, but in practice, what we see that it goes well. We have so many happy stories with just last week we published a story about a 99-year-old man who bought his first EV. And yeah, so it's not impossible to change our ways, and the change is not that big either. Mm-hmm. So then we also have challenges, of course, with building up a new industry, and of course there is also fear of jobs in existing industries. This is a real challenge, of course, but what we see also there is that the cars that are on the street today, they will be around for 20 years. So it's not going to be that fast, the change. So even with the fast pace we have of EVs entering the new car market in Norway, we will still have the old cars around for a long time, and they will still need gas, they will still need service. And in the meantime, people will retire, people will have time to adapt and move into other jobs. So I think giving that message is quite important to me. It's not dramatic. Yes, we have to change, but in the big picture, it's not that dramatic and fast.
Yeah, along with what you're saying, I think transport still accounts for one fifth of global carbon dioxide emissions, and it seems unlikely that all vehicles will be electrified in the next 30 years, as you were mentioning. So we probably will see some of these other interesting alternatives like synthetic fuels or biomethane, all types of biofuels that will accompany battery-powered and maybe hydrogen vehicles. I wanted to see if you could, we know that the example of Norway is a very fascinating one, but maybe you can tell me about some of the markets around the world that you think are developing in a very interesting way. We know that China is obviously the leading user now, so I'm sure you have some interesting insights to share with us.
Well, I think for the European market, it's quite clear the ambition set by the Commission now with phasing out in practice the fossil cars within 15 years. That's important, and we see that it's starting to happen. We see the main OEMs, the main car companies in Europe are launching plans to be in line with those ambitions. So things are happening, and we see steady sales growth, and we saw even through the Corona pandemic until now that EV sales did not drop off, but the fossil car sales did. So that's the European picture. Of course, it's fragmented. You will have some countries going faster than others. And this is, I think, mostly related to their policy and their awareness more than, although also finances play a role, but I think it's more about policy and awareness. Then going to the US, of course, the change of president there is huge. It's they're coming back on board again with the rest of the world with combating climate change, and this also brings on a more a very ambitious policy actually for electrification of cars in the US car market. China we already mentioned, and the other thing from China is that they will now, I think, be much more oriented towards exports of their cars. So we will see more cars with Chinese brands being launched, especially in Europe in the coming period.
A key thing for you, and I guess there's something your associations, especially the world one, works on, is the thing about standards, right? We know that in the US they have a problem because depending on the company and the geographical area, they may have different plug types. Europe seems like they've done quite a good job with having one format. So maybe you can update us on what the situation is on that.
Well, yeah, plugs is one thing. It seems quite clear now that we'll have CCS as the main standard. A bigger concern for me is how you pay for the charging service. And I can go anywhere in Europe with a credit card and some cash and pay for whatever I want except charging my car. So this is still an issue, and it's something where that has been on the radar in Brussels for some time, and I believe we will have a solution, but it's not yet here. I think this is a key point to make it accessible. But it's not that difficult, so I'm sure we'll handle it with the right standard and the right legislation. If we'll end up having credit cards on all the fast chargers, or if we'll have plug and charge system where it's done automatically with the car recognizing the charger and vice versa, I don't know yet, but this is an interesting area to watch.
I'm sure you've had many discussions with retailers, both from the traditional fuels industry as well as newcomers into the charging industry, exclusively about the business model. This is a big debate right now, and it's obviously a new way of transport, a new energy, and a lot of people accept that the business model, you can expect to have a huge income in these first years. How do you see that business case for electric vehicle charging to kind of foment infrastructure and more retailers to get into the business?
I'm not an expert in petrol stations, but what I know is that many of them make very little money on the gas and a lot on hot dogs, etc. So this will not change. I think that you have a lot of other things, but in general, there is of course concern, and that has been the concern with the car industry also, that they make a lot of money still on the service of the cars, and the maintenance need on electric vehicles is lower. So will they also lose something there? On the other hand, there are other services introduced, and I think for the car industry, they need to be better at knowing the IT side of things. That's where a lot of the new value creation in the car industry will be.
Okay, Espen. Well, this was a fascinating chat. It's for for better or worse, depending on which side you are of the debate, electrification is coming, and it's very interesting to speak to people like you that are leading the way. And yeah, best of luck. Thank you for being with us today at PetrolPlaza, and hopefully we'll catch you at another time.
Yes, and you're very welcome to come to Norway to have to visit some of the new energy stations that we see here and drive around and have a look. In June next year we'll have a big conference, so that's a perfect opportunity.
I'd love to. Well, until that time, thank you.
Yeah.